Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you very much for your time.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure indeed. So the upcoming visit to Australia with the Gaslight Anthem, we're thrilled that you're coming. How are you feeling about it?
I'm crazy excited. I could not be more excited.
Oh, brilliant. Look, having been writing and performing for over a decade and with so many associations in the industry, has anyone given you any advice for visiting Australia?
Actually, I called my friend Dave Hawes, who's opened for Gaslight before, and I kind of just asked him for advice. And we talked for a very long time, but basically he was like, you just got to figure it out on your own. He was like, there's not really any advice I can give, you know. It's just a great time, and Gaslight's crowds are great, and he kind of made me feel better. I was a little nervous because I've played to, you know, these size crowds before with a band, but never solo, and that's kind of what I was looking for, somebody to kind of tell me it was all going to be okay.
Let me
and he
assure
definitely
you it's all going to be okay. We're keenly anticipating your visit.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
Pleasure indeed. I have to ask you, has anyone been capable of defining for you what a musician's musician actually is?
Oh, I don't know. I've always kind of, you know, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, I guess, because, you know, I definitely my band Fake Problems, we've kind of been called a band's band in some ways before, and it kind of means that, like, you're the band that all the other bands kind of watch from the side of the stage, but the audience is kind of indifferent to you. And then the flip side of that is that you're the band that all the audience loves and all the other bands don't like. So I don't know. It's a weird place to be. But I've kind of gotten to a comfortable place where I think I've got, you know, half the bands and half the audience to like me now. So
terrific. Your vocal capabilities are so diverse and tremendous. You're currently the lead of Fake Problems and half of Antarctigo Vespucci, and also working on your solo sound. You seem to hunger for new sounds. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of, you know, I spent a good deal of time just focusing on Fake Problems, and I love being in Fake Problems, and I love everyone in Fake Problems. But, you know, we'd kind of get these criticisms that started to kind of, started to resonate with me personally, because just sometimes we would just have one kind of song and then a totally different style song, and it kind of started to seem like it might make more sense if I started to you know, put these songs into different projects and kind of compartmentalize them and kind of give each thing its own kind of context. And I've slowly been doing that, and, you know, my mind is always racing with kind of ideas for songs and genres I want to explore. So it's definitely kind of a challenge to know where to place everything. But you know, I try. I'm trying.
Ducks fly together, and when the wind blows hard and the sky is black, ducks fly together is such a lovely turn of phrase. Was there a particular influence for your work with Gray Gordon?
There was it was basically the record label No Sleep Records kind of asked us to kind of to do a split together, and I'm a fan of his music, and I believe he's a fan of mine, and that was really exciting because that's actually the first proper solo release I've ever made. So I kind of sitting down and working on those songs, it was definitely a whole new feeling, because, you know, I've never really written a song until then, like, thinking this is what this is going to be. Like, I kind of write something and go, okay, and then, you know, I'll bring it to the rest of the guys in the band, and then we'll work it out. But writing for that was kind of like I felt more serious about it in a way. I felt like what I was doing was more I had to be more focused, and I had to think more in a way. Like, I had to really be sure of what I was doing. So it was definitely an interesting experience, and I really enjoyed it because I've started to do a lot more of things like that.
You've played with the Gaslight Anthem in the US, and of course, Benny Horowitz makes a guest appearance on Soulmate Stuff. What makes you and Gaslight Anthem such a successful team?
I don't really know. That's a good question. I think we're one of the bands that kind of, Fake Problems took Gaslight Anthem on their first tour when they were just a brand new band. And we were very new ourselves. I mean, it wasn't like we were playing big shows. We were playing like basements, and they were opening, and we were headlining in basements. So it was nothing crazy. But we kind of came up together in a way, and we've just known them through it all. And it's, for us and for me, it's so inspiring, so awesome to kind of to see how they've grown and to watch. Like I was watching them perform in London a few months ago, and they were playing this gigantic 10,000 capacity theater, and they were playing one of the songs from their first record. And then I was watching them, and I was just thinking about watching them play, in a basement in Gainesville, Florida, that same song, and just kind of flipping through that image in my mind was like, that's amazing. That's like the dream,
Yeah, it'd be quite daunting, I would imagine. You have such a tremendous choice of your own songs. Do you have a favourite track that you like to perform live?
I love playing the Songs for Teenagers, which is from the 2010 Fake Problems record. There's a couple of the newer, the Antarctica Vespucci songs that are really fun to play just because they're newer and the words kind of are very real to me because they are very current and kind of the stories are still unfolding.
Sure, absolutely. I have to ask you about the Jimmy Fallon T-shirt presentation to Will Smith. It must have made you very happy.
Yeah.
Did you know about
that?
Was
I did not.
I
did not know about it at all. I was very surprised. I was just sitting in bed watching The Tonight Show, and I kind of, it had crossed my mind, like, oh, how funny would it be, or how crazy would it be? But of course I was just like, but that's obviously not going to happen. And then, the segment went on, and he said to Will Smith, oh, have you heard of this band, The Smiths? And then he pulled out, like, the regular Smiths band T-shirt.
Sure.
And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then, like, 1 second later, he pulls out my shirt. And I just, like, it was, like, the closest to feeling, like, in shock I've ever felt. Like, it was insane. And then my phone, I got more text messages and phone calls than I've ever gotten in my whole life, and thankfully sold a bunch of T-shirts as well. So
magnificent.
Yeah.
And of course, as a shameless plug, those T-shirts are available on your website.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Look, I have to ask how difficult it's been evolving in the Florida music scene.
It's interesting. Because when I first started going to shows when I was like 15, it was inspiring, and it's what inspired me to become a musician, because I walked into, like, a community center where some, I was 14 or 15 at the time. I walked into a community center, and there was just this punk show going on with a band playing on the floor with a crappy PA. And I had, up until then, I had never even crossed my mind that you can just do that. Like, I thought there were just huge, giant concerts with, Blink-182 and the Beatles and all of the, these giant bands.
Cool.
I didn't even think that, I can just buy a guitar and I could be that guy on the floor right there. So that kind of, the early music scene kind of inspired me in that way. And then as time went on, as I reached like 18 or 19, our local scene kind of stopped. There stopped being as many shows, and bands stopped coming down to Naples because it's kind of a trek. And that's when my band Fake Problems, we were kind of just starting, and we because the music scene was so dried out in Naples, it forced us to tour and to go to other places, and so I think if it hadn't been for kind of the absence of a music scene, we may have kind of comfortably just been a local band, who could play all the time for people in the local scene, but we didn't have that, so we had to tour, which I think touring is probably the most, if not one of the most important things about being being an active musician these days.
Sure, absolutely, a sign of the times, no doubt. Speaking of touring, what can Australian audiences expect from your performances? Is it a mix of tracks from all three manifestations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll be performing kind of stripped down acoustic versions of Fake Problem songs and Antarctigo Vespucci songs and my own solo songs, and kind of weaving them in and out of each other, and kind of I'm still working on my set, but I'm getting pretty happy with it. I'm pretty excited about the direction I'm heading.
Oh, that's very exciting for listeners to hear too. I can't wait to hear that myself. I have to ask where the name came from, Antarctigo Vespucci.
I think that was the other guy in the band, Jeff Rosenstock, who's also in a band, or used to be in a band called Bomb the Music Industry. That was his idea. Before we kind of started the band, we wrote one song together like 2 years ago, and he was like, let's call it Antarctigo Vespucci. It's just a band name I kind of have been knocking around. And the idea is that if Amerigo Vespucci is the guy who discovered America, Antarctigo Vespucci would be the guy who discovered Antarctica. And I guess you would say Australia Go Vespucci would be the guy who discovered Australia.
Oh, that's terrific. What a brilliant name for a tour in the future, perhaps.
Yeah.
True. What are you expecting from Australian fans?
Oh, I don't know what to expect. I've heard everybody is very excited about music, so that's exciting because I'm excited about music. I don't really know what to expect. I just hope everybody is at least polite to me and doesn't boo me off the stage.
I think you'll find us all very welcoming. I have to ask, has there been a particular influence throughout your career as another performer's influence on your work?
Definitely. What kind of made me want to start writing music was kind of the early bands that came out of Omaha in like the early 2000s, like Bright Eyes and Conor Oberst and Cursive, Good Life, The Faint, and kind of other bands like Rilo Kiley from Saddle Creek. Those are kind of the names that I kind of like look back on and think, oh, that's kind of the seed that planted songwriting in my head. And then, I just try to continue to evolve and listen to anything I can. I've been really getting into Ryan Adams and Nick Cave and things like Elvis Costello and all sorts of Jarvis Cocker, things like that. Just trying to always kind of keep my ears open for anything and reach back into the past and just always look for new sounds.
No, certainly, which you're achieving beautifully. Finally, Chris, your music does have such a diversity. I'm personally loath to label it in any way. Would you categorize your own music? In the earlier days of Fake Problems, people would always just call us a punk band, and we would hate it so much. We would fight against it so hard. But now I'm just like, it's the easiest thing because it's punk, whatever. I just say punk now. I definitely am mostly influenced by the more indie rock side of things, but I've definitely come up in the punk scene, and there's definitely a lot of great bands that involved in the punk scene, and I used to have this fear that punk meant dumb. Yeah.
to some people, I think that kind of does resonate, but I don't know.
Yes.
There's so much with bands like I don't know if I can swear or if it's effed up, punk bands like that, and I can't think of anything. But there's interesting fun and smarter punk happening now, and it doesn't feel like such a scary thing to kind of attach your name to. So I just say punk now.
Terrific. Look, we eagerly anticipate your visit in late January and early February, and early indications are that the shows will be greatly well received. Can I thank you very much again for your time today and speaking with us, and I apologise for the break there in our recording. We can't wait to see you.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Pleasure indeed. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Oh, thank you, Rowan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.